The Little Brown Jug is the first and oldest trophy game in college football. The Jug originated from the 1903 matchup as then Michigan head coach Fielding Yost instructed student manager Thomas Roberts to buy a jug so the team could supply their own water out of fear the Minnesota fan base might try to contaminate their water supply. The game would end 2 minutes early as the Minnesota fans would storm the field after the Gophers tied the game at 6. In the chaos, the Jug would be forgotten, and when the teams met again in 1909, the team captains of both squads decided the Jug, quote, might be material to build up a fine tradition between the two institutions. And so it has, with the Michigan-Minnesota rivalry game being played 103 times, 96 of which have been done with a Little Brown Jug in play. Michigan currently leads the all-time series 75-25-3, and the next matchup is set for October 17, 2020 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The 2018 rendition, had it been played, would also have been in Minnesota, and would have featured a Michigan squad that would go 10-3 and be ranked 14th in the National Final AP poll, and a Minnesota squad that would finish the season 7-6, but would go out defeating Georgia Tech 34-10 in the Quick Lane Bowl. Hello and welcome to Minneapolis, Minnesota, as the Michigan Wolverines take on the Minnesota Golden Gophers in the battle for the Little Brown Jug. Minnesota would win the toss and elect to defer, allowing Michigan to return. Ambry Thomas would catch the short kickoff and quickly make his way outside, outrunning the coverage and getting all the way home before the score. Minnesota would respond though, not through the return game, but through the air, as Tanner Morgan would hit Bryce Williams out of the backfield, who then somehow forced his way through countless Michigan defenders on his way to a long touchdown to tie things up at 7. The Michigan offense would then trot out onto the field, led by Ole Miss transfer Shea Patterson, who looks to pass but would find no one open, forcing him to scramble up the middle, picking up 9. Jim Harbaugh would then go to his bread and butter, letting Karan Higdon take it up the middle for the first. Patterson would then find fullback Ben Mason, who'd slip a tackler and push another forward for a 6-yard pickup. On second down, he'd go right back to him, hitting Mason over the middle for 12. 3 plays later, faced with a 3rd and 2, Karan Higdon would take the handoff right, break a tackle, and then get tripped up after getting the first. Unfortunately, he'd be injured on the play, knocking him out for the rest of the game. Next, Patterson would fool the defense with this read option, keeping the ball and picking up 9, before taking a hard hit. Chris Evans would then get the pitch and get out past the line for the first before being pushed out of bounds. Now in the red zone, faced with a 3rd down, Patterson would look to the end zone, but the pass would sail out of the back of the end zone, bringing up 4th. They would put the kick through easily, making it a 3-point game. Minnesota would face an early 3rd down on their next drive, but Morgan would find Chris Ottman-Bell over the middle to get the first. Mohamed Ibrahim would then get the handoff on the next play, going right up the middle for 17. He'd then get it again, going right up the middle, this time for 7. 2 plays later on 3rd, Morgan would hit Abraham on the screen, but it would be well covered, losing yards. They'd then come out for the field goal, but a false start would push them back. The penalty would turn a 52-yard attempt into a 57-yard attempt. The hold would be good, but the kicker just wouldn't have the leg, and the kick would fall short. Minnesota would get the ball back though, after a defensive stop, but be pinned back near their goal line, faced with a 3rd down. Luckily, Morgan would find Jake Paulson over the middle to pick up the first. On the next play, Morgan would look for the wide receiver screen, but David Long would jump the route, picking off the pass and making it easily into the end zone to expand the Wolverine lead to 10. They'd then get a stop and find themselves in good field position as Patterson would find Evans near the sideline, who'd make several Gophers miss while staying in bounds and getting into Minnesota territory. Patterson would then drop back to pass again, finding True Wilson over the middle for 7. 2 plays later on 3rd and 1, Wilson would just barely get across the line for the first. On 2nd and 10, Patterson would find Chris Evans out of the backfield, who'd use downfield blocking to get inside the red zone. Then faced with another 3rd, Patterson would find Donovan Peoples-Jones right over the middle to pick up the first. 3 plays later, Patterson would call his own number, scrambling into the end zone for the score. After a good punt return, the Gophers would find themselves in plus territory, but faced with a 3rd midway through the 3rd, as Morgan would find Abraham on a screen, who'd shove down a wimpy tackler and find himself into the red zone. The drive would then stall out though, forcing this field goal to make it a 14-point game. They'd quickly get the ball back though, and in plus territory too, but again on a 3rd down, but Abraham would go right up the middle on the handoff and pick up a new set of downs. Then Morgan would drop back and find Tyler Johnson, who'd get past the sticks for another 1st down. Unfortunately, they'd stall out again, kicking this field goal to make it an 11-point game. Michigan would then get the ball back, and Patterson would find Zach Gentry for a couple. However, he'd be dragged down by his face mask, adding 15 to the play. 2 plays later, Patterson would find an open Nico Collins to get into Gopher territory. 2 plays after that, he'd find him again, picking up another 1st down. Into the 4th, faced with a 3rd and 6, Patterson would look to the end zone, but the pass would be broken up. They'd then kick this ball through the uprights to go back up 14 with less than a full quarter left. Minnesota hopes to not go out quietly, but Morgan would be faced to throw short on 3rd and long, bringing up a 4th and short. He'd break out an option keeper on 4th, but the defense would not be fooled, meeting him at the 1st down line, stopping him short for the turnover. Unfortunately for Michigan, their offense would do nothing, and be forced to attempt this long field goal to clinch things up. But despite having the distance, it would sail wide right, leaving the door open for Minnesota. Minnesota hopes to use it too, as Ibrahim goes up the middle for 5. Morgan would then use the option keeper to get across the line for the 1st. He'd then use it again, picking up 5 in the process. 2 plays later, he'd find a wide open set screen to get past the 1st and more, picking up 15 and getting out of bounds. Ibrahim would then get the handoff and take it left, picking up 7. 3 plays later, on 4th and 3, he'd get it again, throwing off a tackler in the backfield, and then being tackled across the line. Minnesota would then look to the end zone, and Morgan would find a wide open Ottman Bell to make it a 7-point game. They'd elect to kick it away, and their defense would hold tight, setting up the 3rd and 6 at the 50 with 1:10 remaining and all 3 timeouts, as Morgan would find Ottman Bell for the 1st. He'd then hit Ibrahim on a screen, picking up 9. Then he'd find Paulson quick over the middle for another 1st. 3 plays later, on 3rd and 11, he'd find Rashad Bateman to get inside the red zone. Then he'd go right back at him in the end zone, and he'd make a heck of a catch to tie things up at 27 and get the game into overtime. Minnesota would win the coin toss and elect to defend, bringing up Michigan's offensive opportunity first, and on 2nd down, Patterson would find Gentry to get right near the goal line. And on the very next play, Evans would get across the goal line for the lead. Minnesota would come out needing a touchdown, and on 3rd and long, they'd look for it. Unfortunately, the pass would be thrown into coverage and picked off, ending the game. Michigan retains the Little Brown Jug, 34-27, in overtime. Thank you all for watching this new series, Missed Matchups, where I replicate rivalry matchups from years the game did not occur. If you have a rivalry game that was missed from 1995 onward and would like to see it played out, please leave in the comments and I will hope to get to it. Now if you liked the video, please leave a like. If you didn't, you can feel free to leave a dislike. And if you have not already, please subscribe. That really helps me out. Thanks again. Bye.